We did this with the NASCAR championships, which and I like doing exercises like this where we're gonna rank the 4 remaining teams by likelihood they'll win the Super Bowl. And I think the reason it's so hard is because, like, honestly, I could see any of these 4 teams winning the Super Bowl. And, like, that seems obvious because it's championship weekend, but, I mean, last year there were a few question marks. I mean, I think we weren't quite sure what to make of the Bengals. They were the Cinderella story. The 49ers were the literal 6th seed last year. So, like, we can say, like, oh, we want, like, oh, literally 3 of the 4 teams are, the same from last year. It's like, yeah, but also, like, there was definitely some question marks. I think it was far and away the favorite going in for the Super Bowl 2 championship weekend was, at the time, Chiefs and Rams. Like, that's what, everybody would have said. Despite the fact that there were some question marks in there. This season, we've got number 1 versus number 2 in the NFC. We've got number 1 versus number 3 in the AFC. All 4 teams are in the top 8, the top 4th of the league in terms of yards per game and points per game offensively. All 4 teams have a lot of weapons. I mean, the Chiefs, you got Kelsey, you've got Pacheco, you've got McKinnon. Eagles, you've got Gainwell, Miles Sanders, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown. The Bengals, you've got Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. The 49ers have McCaffrey, Kittle, Debo Samuel. I mean, every one of these teams has a lot of weapons you can go to. The 49ers, Bengals, and Eagles are in the top 8 in the league in points allowed per game. The 49ers and Eagles are the top 2 in terms of yards per game this season. And so, like, you have teams that have a lot of weapons, great offenses, great defenses. Because of how close these teams are, I'm gonna rank these teams by who their quarterback is, and and the team's ability to stop who the opposing quarterback is. And based on that, number 1 for me is the Eagles. Surprisingly enough, I really thought with how the Bengals played this past weekend, I would end up going with them. But, I mean, Jalen Hurts had the 4th best QBR and passer rating in the regular season this year. His performance against the Giants puts him 2nd in QBR and 3rd in passer rating this postseason. I think he squashed a lot of, maybe some of the doubters that with how that Eagles season ended might have said, like, oh, I don't know, are the Eagles actually for real? Are they an actual 1 seed, or are they like a Titans 1 seed where, they're not maybe as good as the 1 seed might predict them through. I mean, and this is a team that can beat you through the air or on the ground, and Hurts is a big part of that. I mean, he showed that this past weekend, and that he's back strong after the injury late in the year. And they have the best pass defense in the league. They led the league in sacks and are 3rd in opponent passer rating. So they their quarterback cannot only, put up these great numbers and lead this team really well, but they also have a defense that can take the opposing quarterback out of it. And so that's why I'm going with the Eagles at number 1. Number 2 for me is indeed the Bengals. I mean, Mahomes has been the better passer than Burrow in the regular season and the postseason, but with the injury to Mahomes, I know he's going to probably play, but even then, like, how good is he going to be, now that he's a little bit hobbled? But, so I'm going to go with Joe Cool here. Burrow is 6th in passer rating this regular season, and has kept that ranking in the postseason. He has got 3 touchdowns, no picks, during the playoffs this year. The Bengals also allowed the 3rd fewest passing touchdowns this season and were 1st in the league in opponent passer rating and opponent completion percentage. So again, a secondary that can take away, the quarterback, and a quarterback that is one of the better quarterbacks with Mahomes that is hobbled. I think that defense has a little bit more of a leg up. I'm gonna go with the Chiefs at number 3. I'm not bold enough to put Mahomes last, even if he is hurt. I'm not bold enough to put a Mahomes-led team in that position. Excuse me. He has the best passer rating of the quarterbacks left in the postseason, behind just Hurts and QBR of the championship weekend quarterbacks. He played a majority of the Jacksonville game hurt. And the Chiefs have the best pass defense behind the Eagles of the teams left. Although I will say 2 through 4 are really close. It's like 18th, 20th, and 21st, like behind where the Eagles are. They are, though, 2nd in the league in sacks this season, right behind Philadelphia, so they can put a lot of pressure. I mean, that's something that Buffalo didn't do, is put a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow. So if this Chiefs defense can get to Joe Burrow, then watch out. It's going to be a really good game for them. And then, of course, number 4 is obviously the 49ers. With the Chiefs, I gave them the benefit of the doubt with who their quarterback is, opposed to the strength of their defense. It's the opposite for San Francisco. Purdy does have a better passer rating than Burrow this postseason. I will say that. And while I would love to see him notch a Super Bowl as a rookie, who was the literal last pick in the draft, by default, he's the quarterback I have the least faith in. And that's only because you're just thinking, like, the bubble's got to burst sometime. At some point, he's got to look like the third string quarterback. At some point, he's got to look like Mr. Relevant. Which is not to say that he doesn't have a bright future ahead of him. I think he does. But I think eventually he's going to have that game that is not going to be great, and I think that potentially comes this weekend. So, that said, their defense is malicious. They're 7th in passing touchdowns allowed. They're 2nd in interceptions. They're 6th in opponent passer rating. And overall, they're 1st in yards allowed per game and 1st in points allowed per game. So, this is a great defense. It's just because of their quarterback, I'm giving him a little bit of a step down. But again, this is a 1-4 where I still think the 4th best team can win the Super Bowl. Like, that's how good.
Yeah.
That's how good 1-4 is.
Yeah. So I'm not looking at it by the quarterback. That's just part of the equation I'm looking at. I'm going off the eye test, looking at what I've seen from these teams, what these teams have, like the momentum some of these teams are carrying at this point in time. So my number 1 team, I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, they're just playing really, really good football. The fact they went into Buffalo in a snowstorm and they just beat the brakes off of the Buffalo Bills. It wasn't, the score was closer than that. What like it sounds like, but
it could have been
was
worse.
did it ever feel like Buffalo really was in that game? It didn't. So that's a testament to how good this team is playing right now. So yeah, I guess I can describe my rankings as power rankings. I've had to explain this to a friend that power rankings are not ranking rankings.
Right.
Power rankings are how good a team is playing at a particular time, that for a particular week. So I'm looking at mine as power rankings. So obviously I'm going with Cincinnati number 1. Number 2, oh man, this one's tough because you're right. 2 through 4 can really just be about anybody. But I'm actually going to go with the San Francisco 49ers because the offense is doing enough. And the thing is, the offense hasn't gotten everybody involved. Like, Christian McCaffrey had a good game. George Kittle had a great game. Brock Purdy had a solid game. They didn't get Deebo Samuel all that involved. And if they can get Deebo Samuel more involved, that offense is going to be really good. Again, but that defense, man, that defense is just playing at a totally different level. So I'm going with the 49ers at number 2. Number 3, I am going with, man, this one's tough, but I am going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I guess I will be looking at quarterbacks in this situation because Jalen Hurts is healthy. Their offense is still clicking. Defense is suspect to me, but that's just my personal opinion. But the deciding factor here of putting them 3 and the Kansas City Chiefs at 4 is the health of Jalen Hurts and the uncertainty of the health of Pat Mahomes. And that's kind of my deciding factors on where to put those 2 teams. But I really, really like right now the Cincinnati Bengals and the San Francisco 49ers. And wasn't that, I know this was before your time. I was like maybe 1 or 2 years old. But I think, no.
Those were the only two. Those were the only Super
Bowls. Was that a Super Bowl?
Those were the only Super Bowls that the Bengals were in up until last year. Was Bengals.
Okay, because I'm just thinking back to a home video my parents had. It was like a Super Bowl, and the family was over. My dad was filming on the family video camera, and you can see the Super Bowl being played in the background. And I swore it was the Bengals were on there, and I haven't seen it in a while. But yeah,
it was the Bengals and 49ers in the Pontiac Silverdome the first time around, and then the second time around, I don't know if it was in back-to-back years. The second time around, because I know the reason why I don't know if it's back-to-back years is because the jerseys were flipped. It was Bengals as the home team the first time around with the 49ers as the road team. And then when they played the second time, it was the 49ers in their home jerseys and the Bengals in their road jerseys. And that's the game where Joe Montana led like the comeback with under a minute to go or whatever with the touchdown to Jerry Rice at the end of the game.
Yeah, and it was either the Super Bowl that was on, or maybe it was the AFC Championship game, even Bengals versus the Chargers.
On the Freezer Bowl.
I don't remember. It was like I think it was 1989, 1990, probably about 1980. It was 1989, most likely.
Yeah, well, if it was Chargers and Bengals, it was probably the Freezer Bowl. That's what they're watching. But yeah, I mean, the only two times the Bengals have ever been in the Super Bowl was against the 49ers up until last year when they played the Rams, obviously. Yeah, there's the Super Bowl trivia minute there for you if you were wanting to
all based off of B. Scott's family home videos.
And not those kind of home videos, folks.
No.
We've summarized the postseason and done all that. We've given our rankings of the best teams, we've given our rankings of from best to worst of the teams still alive in the postseason. So now it is the moment of truth. We must give our predictions for the AFC and NFC championship games, and we're doing it with a little bit of a twist, where we're also going to give a same game parlay because we want to win $72,000 too. Although these bets won't probably do that for you, but still, we want to. I think it would be interesting to kind of give an indication of how we think the game will go as well as far as how it will be played. We're going to start in order of how these games are going to be played. Because I think the AFC Championship game is first. So we'll start with
it usually is.
Yeah. So we'll go AFC Championship game first. Bengals at Chiefs. Pick plus a 3-leg same game parlay for the game. For me, I'm going to go with the Bengals. My parlay is Bengals money line, which means they win outright, because right now the spread is like -1. So you might as well just go with the money line at that point. The over at 47 points and Isaiah Pacheco over 47.5 rushing yards. I'm leading Bengals with the Mahomes injury. I think this game does, however, hit the over. 51 points scored in last year's game, so I think it still is going to have some solid points scored. The Bengals can get after the quarterback. Mahomes is hobbled, and I think they lean on their running backs a little bit more than usual, so that's why I think Pacheco has a pretty solid game because I think they will work him into the offense, just kind of like they did against the Jaguars late. But more importantly than anything else, as a reason to go with the Bengals in the AFC Championship game, is that the Bengals have the Chiefs' number. They beat them twice last season, including this game in the AFC Championship game. They also beat them earlier this season. I know it was in Cincinnati. This game's in Kansas City, but still, this will be like the fourth time in a calendar year that they've played, in like a little over a calendar year that they've played the Chiefs, and so far they're 3-0. And that with going along with the way they beat Buffalo this past weekend, I'm going Bengals. I know like all the buildup and hype has everybody on the Bengals this time around, so that probably means the opposite result. But I'm going Bengals here. Bengals win the AFC Championship.
So yeah, my pick is the Bengals as well, if it wasn't too clear from my rankings up previously. Let me make sure I got the right one pulled up here. The same game parlay that I would look at is Bengals money line. Obviously, like the same thing you said, it's the spread is -1. Like that's a lose-lose if you go with that. Now, by the way, this is a parlay that I'm looking at that the odds are plus 1100. So if it hits, great. But Bengals money line, I got Joe Burrow with the alternate passing yards of over 280 passing yards and Jamar Chase to score 2 or more touchdowns. He's a favorite target. Why not go for it? I mean, when Joe Burrow is at his best, it's when he's connecting with Jamar Chase frequently, and they know how to find each other, especially in the red zone.
I will say I thought about doing some Burrow stats as well. I do feel a little slighted because one of the legs in my parlay this weekend in the Buffalo game this didn't lose it for me, thank goodness, because if it was this close and it lost it for me, I'd be very sad. But it was for Burrow to throw over 250 yards, and he ended at 242. So he was so close. Look, my parlay in that game was like Jamar Chase scoring a touchdown, which he did. A few of my bets did hit, like Joe Mixon had to get like over. Excuse me, had to get over. I think like 54 yards, which he did pretty easily. But I also had like the over, which they didn't hit. I had Stephon Diggs as an anytime touchdown scorer, which he didn't do. So I mean, I was telling my parents, I was like, look, I would rather me miss like several legs. I was like, now that I know it won't hit, I want like none of my other parts of this bet to hit, because the worst feeling is when you have like that one leg that didn't work out, which I felt that pain a couple times this year in college football season. So I was happy when none of the rest of that parlay hit. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I was reluctant to go with some of the offensive stats, but I do think it's not gonna be like a shootout by any means, but there are gonna be some solid points scored.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a good one.
So as far as the NFC Championship game, pick and same game parlay, 49ers at Eagles, I'm gonna go with the Eagles. I've got the Eagles -2.5. Because I think it is going to be a close game. I don't feel confident enough to say like it's going to be a touchdown. I think it is going to be really close. Under 45.5 points. This is going to be a defensive struggle. And I think it's going to be kind of like what the Cowboys and 49ers was this weekend. And I've got Hurts as an anytime touchdown scorer, which I made sure to put in parentheses. That means he rushed a touchdown. He did not throw a touchdown. These teams are so evenly matched, both on offense and defense. This is going to be a defensive slugfest. Like I said, the Eagles have the better quarterback. He can beat you both with his arm and his leg, which is why I think he can, get one for you on the ground there. It is close, but I think at home, Eagles squeak out a nail biter. Their ability to get to the quarterback and shut down the opposing signal caller will be enough to shut down Purdy and neutralize the 49ers offense. I've got the Eagles advancing to the Super Bowl.
So mine, I have my pick is the 49ers. Again, if you couldn't already tell from my rankings. So my same game parlay is a plus 650. 49ers money line. I did not want to ever really mess with the spread, because I always feel like you're going to be left like with that half point you need. And I've never had luck. So I always go money line. That's just the way I roll. I am working with an over under though, and that is with San Francisco total points. I'm going over 21.5 total points. And then I think in order for them to get there, this one might hit, and that is for Christian McCaffrey to score 2 or more touchdowns. Look, Christian McCaffrey is a do-it-all type guy. If you really need to get some good yardage, he's there. So, and also he helped me hit my last leg of my parlay this past weekend. So, gotta go with the consistency there.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't go Deebo Samuel, because that was who you talked up in your rankings.
Well, I talked to him because they need to do more with him if they want to win. I just figured, Christian McCaffrey being their running back, and then with a quarterback that's not, doesn't have
probably the
quite
safer
the
bet.
experience. Yeah, because it's Christian McCaffrey can either be a runner or a receiver. So the odds were more likely that he would score a touchdown.
Sure.
And I was worried there for a while. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And then they got down to like the 2-yard line, and my brother-in-law texted me. He said, this is happening.
The 49ers and McCaffrey have helped me with one parlay that I hit on and one that I didn't hit on. I had a lot of luck with them in the Seattle game, and then not so much luck in this game. McCaffrey did get the touchdown that I needed him to get. He did not get anywhere close to the rushing yards. He was like 10 yards short of what he needed receiving yards. But yeah, that's the great thing about betting too. Late in the game, I was like, okay, if the Cowboys still have time to throw to CeeDee Lamb, who I need to score a touchdown, they can throw it to him, and then it can be a long pass or a long run to McCaffrey. You can get him in field goal range. Like, this can all still work out. But yeah, McCaffrey is the safer bet. He's been, such a breath of fresh air into that San Francisco offense, and is a solid reason why they're here where they are. So yeah, it's like I said, I can see any of these 4 teams that are still available winning the Super Bowl, and it's going to be a fun week of football.